Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into a fundamental, totally universal human flaw, and it's one that affects absolutely every single one of us. We're talking about the persistent, overwhelmingly powerful illusion that we are completely objective. We all love to think of ourselves as impartial judges of reality, taking in the facts exactly as they are. But as we're going to see today, our brains are fundamentally wired to cheat. Let's get right into it. Here's our cognitive roadmap for The Explainer. Number 1, the illusion of objectivity. 2, the 3 types of bias. 3, why our brains cheat. 4, bias in the real world. And finally, number 5, how to fight your brain. Section 1, the illusion of objectivity. We generally walk around assuming we process information like perfectly rational computers, right? Just taking in facts, weighing them neutrally, and outputting a perfectly logical conclusion. But science tells a wildly different story. Which brings us to a fascinating question. Why do smart people believe weird things? As science historian Michael Shermer pointed out, smart people believe weird things because they are incredibly skilled at defending beliefs they arrived at for non-smart reasons. Intelligence doesn't actually protect you from irrationality. Actually, it often just makes you way better at rationalizing it. To see how this works, consider this famous anecdote. So, an atheist and priest are sitting in an Alaskan bar. The atheist mentions he recently got caught in a terrible, freezing blizzard. He couldn't see a thing, it was 20 degrees below zero, and in pure desperation, he fell to his knees and prayed to God for help. The priest smiles and says, "Well, then you must believe in God now, you're alive." But the atheist rolls his eyes and says, "No, that's not what happened at all. A couple of wandering Eskimos just happened to come by and showed me the way back to camp." This perfectly captures our topic. Two people looking at the exact same objective event, but interpreting it through totally different lenses to support what they already believe. It's kind of hilarious how quickly we dismiss the impossible when it just doesn't fit our playbook. So, what is confirmation bias? It's the tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs or values. Basically, think of it as having an internal yes man living inside your head. This yes man constantly echoes back whatever you already desire to be true, acting as this invisible filter over your entire reality. Moving on to Section 2, the 3 types of bias. Let's break down exactly how this internal yes man operates and actively builds this powerful illusion of knowledge. Confirmation bias isn't just one single action. It actually happens in 3 distinct stages. First up is biased search, or attention. We only notice or seek out information that fits our narrative. Like, if you love a certain brand, you'll naturally search out positive reviews and just scroll right past the negative ones. Second is biased interpretation. This is where we take complex, mixed information and warp it to support our views. And third is biased memory. This is where we selectively remember the hits that prove us right while entirely forgetting the misses. Let's look at a stunning real-world example of that biased interpretation. During the 2004 U.S. presidential election, researchers put strong supporters of both George W. Bush and John Kerry into an MRI scanner. They showed these partisans clearly contradictory statements made by their preferred candidate. And what happened? Well, their brain's emotional centers lit up like a Christmas tree. Partisans on both sides subconsciously used their emotional processing to excuse their own candidate's hypocrisy. It actively reduced their cognitive dissonance. But when they read contradictions from the opposing candidate, they judge them harshly and entirely logically. The brain literally alters its processing path, depending on whether it wants the information to be true or false. Now for Section 3, why our brains cheat. I want to assure you, this happens because our brains desperately need massive evolutionary shortcuts, not because we're unintelligent. Imagine your mind is divided into an elephant and a rider. The elephant is your unconscious mind. It's fast, intuitive, and relies on deep-seated patterns to keep you safe and aligned with your social group. The rider up top is your conscious, rational mind. We love to think the rider is in charge, steering the elephant, but in reality, the massive, powerful elephant decides where it wants to go based on instinct, and the rider is basically just hanging on for dear life, tasked with rationalizing and making excuses for the path the elephant already took. Evolutionarily, groups that share tight narratives and work well together survive much better than fractured groups of independent thinkers. To prove how this works in real time, let's look at psychologist Peter Watson's brilliant 1960s rule discovery task. He gave people a simple sequence of numbers: 2, 4, 6. He told them this sequence followed a specific hidden rule, and their job was to figure it out by proposing their own sequences of 3 numbers. Most people immediately guessed the rule was even numbers going up by 2. So, to test it, they'd ask, does 10, 12, 14 fit? The researcher would say yes. They'd ask, does 20, 22, 24 fit? Again, yes. They felt incredibly confident. But they were wrong. The actual rule was simply any ascending sequence of numbers. It literally could have been 1, 5, 400. People failed to find the rule because they only tested numbers that confirmed their initial theory. They almost never tested numbers that might falsify it, like 9, 8, 7. This perfectly illustrates the root of our bias. We look for positive tests that prove us right instead of diagnostic tests that might prove us wrong. Section 4, Bias in the Real World. Because this isn't just some quirky lab experiment. It is actively shaping our reality. Let's rapidly fire through some of these real-world impacts. On social media, our natural bias is weaponized by algorithms. It traps us in filter bubbles and echo chambers that rapidly accelerate the spread of fake news, simply because we implicitly trust things that align with our worldview. In science, even highly trained researchers suffer from the file drawer effect, discarding or ignoring data that contradicts their pet theories. In medicine, physicians can fixate on an initial diagnosis, undervaluing life-saving alternative clues, a classic case of biased interpretation. And in commerce, if you want a specific tablet, your brain selectively searches out only the positive reviews for that exact device. It affects the whole shebang. So, let's look at Section 5, How to Fight Your Brain. There actually is an antidote to this ubiquitous human flaw, but it takes some rigorous effort. Here is your 3-step survival guide. Step 1, cultivate neuropsychological humility. That's a big term, but it's just the profound acceptance that your perception, your memory, and your reasoning are fundamentally flawed. Step 2, practice metacognition. This simply means thinking about your own thinking. When you have a knee-jerk reaction to a news story, pause and ask yourself, wait, why do I want this to be true? Step 3, apply the scientific method to your daily life. You have to put in the cognitive work to actively seek out disconfirming evidence. Find the smartest person who disagrees with you and genuinely listen to their points to see if you can falsify your own beliefs. And look, this brilliantly illustrates why that's so incredibly hard. Consider this powerful quote from Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy, written all the way back in 1897. He observed that people can rarely accept obvious truths if it forces them to admit that the conclusions they've built their lives and reputations upon are false. It is a high-energy, totally exhausting state of vigilance to admit you are wrong. But true critical thinking requires the humility to acknowledge that you might be. I want to end this explainer by leaving you with a provocative question. What deeply held belief do you need to re-examine today? Now that you know the elephant is doing the driving and the rider is just making excuses, where in your life are you only looking for the numbers 2, 4, and 6? Step outside your filter bubble today, seek out something that challenges you, and put your new critical thinking skills to the ultimate test. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning your reality.